What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live here on a Monday night. The NBA Finals are set. I dropped a conference finals review over on the main channel. I will have another two videos probably coming up tonight, a mailbag and a Matherin player draft profile. But we're going to preview the NBA Finals matchup. We're going to get Eric's prediction. We'll get your guys' predictions as well in the chat when we get there. And we're going to talk about maybe some things to watch in that series, the Celtics versus the Golden State Warriors. We'll also talk about who we're rooting for. And then I want to run through a full 2-round mock draft with I want to run through it based on who me and Eric would take in each team spot. We just had a mock draft video that I dropped a couple days ago over on the main channel. We just had our mock off-season draft, which is a part of our mock off-season stuff. Join our Discord if you're interested in any of that stuff. So we're jumping deep into the draft stuff because it's only 3.5 weeks away. Anyway, what's going on, Eric? How's things going?
Oh, good. Just had a nice family day today. Went bowling and did some other stuff, and now I'm ready for the stream.
Yep, nice.
How about you?
It's been good, man. Just been spending time with family. Just got to work on editing this Matherin draft profile, and looking forward to getting that out. Anyway, let's not waste any time. Let's jump into NBA Finals preview. I'll get your takes if you have any on the conference finals. I already made mine in that 30-minute video. It was just a one-take video if you guys haven't watched it yet. But Eric, do you have any takeaways from the conference finals from either series that you want to get off your chest?
Boston's defense is really good, and Golden State is still just really tough to beat.
Yep, I'm glad that Boston made the finals. I think it's going to be more competitive being a Boston versus Golden State series than a Miami versus Golden State series. I don't know why I feel that way, but I really like this matchup with Boston and Golden State. What are your keys to this series? Like, what do you think is the X factor, and then what is your prediction?
My key is, can Boston's awesome defense stop the Warriors, who I pretty much, other than games where they just mailed it in, like the 40 how many points they lost by to Memphis in, what was that, game 6? Or no, game 5 it was, and then they took care of business in game 6. The Warriors aren't going to score under 100 very often, in my opinion, no matter how good your defense is. So can the Warriors find ways to score against that Boston defense? Because if they can, Boston, I think, is going to have a very tough time matching them. And if they can't, Boston could sneak this win and win the series. But my official prediction, I think the Warriors are just playing too well right now, and I think they will win in 6.
I got the Celtics in 6 or 7. I guess I'll go Celtics in 7. I think it's going to be a close series, but I think the Celtics... I'm riding the Celtics bandwagon right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think their path to where they are now is more impressive than what the Warriors just dealt with. The Warriors beat a shorthanded Denver team, a Memphis team that played half the series without Ja Morant, and then they beat Dallas. Meanwhile, Boston beat Brooklyn, swept them, beat Milwaukee in 7, and they didn't have Chris Middleton, so Milwaukee a little shorthanded. But, you defending champs, you have Giannis, in my opinion, best player in the world. And then they took care of Miami, which, honestly, I don't know if there was a series win for Golden State that was more impressive than any of Boston's series wins. I think Boston had a harder path to get here. I think that they obviously have a ton of momentum after starting the season, in 11th place in the East in January, and they went on that huge second half of the season run. Ime Udoka, I'm curious to see what he schemes up defensively in order to deal with Golden State. I just think, Steph's phenomenal, but their next best offensive player, would you say it's Jordan Poole at this point, or would you still say it's Clay?
It depends on the game. Game six, Clay is definitely better. But yeah, Clay struggled early in that series. He still acts like he's the second best player. Um, but yeah, yeah, I would say Pool's kind of right there. But they have a handful of guys who can score, so I don't think it's that.
Yeah, I just have more confidence in, if Tatum struggles, I have more confidence in Jaylen Brown stepping up for him compared to if Curry struggles or gets shut down. I have a little bit more confidence in Jaylen Brown versus Jordan Poole or Klay Thompson at this point. Obviously, Golden State runs a team-oriented offense. They have a number of guys that can go off. I'm feeling confident in, you got Smart to throw up against Steph or against Jordan Poole, and then you got Tatum to throw up against, one of those guys as well. And Jaylen Brown played some solid defense there in that conference finals, in my opinion, as well. So you got some. I like the defensive matchups for Boston a little bit better in this series, and I think Al Horford, Robert Williams protecting the rim as well will allow guys to maybe settle out on overplaying Steph on the three-point line as well. I just like the way that Boston matches up with Golden State. And I believe since, 2014, 2015, Boston's the only team with a winning record against the Warriors out of any team in the league, which probably means nothing, but I thought that was an interesting tidbit. So I'm confident in the Celtics. When the Celtics, I was rolling with Milwaukee. When the Celtics beat Milwaukee, I was confident in Boston. Even when they were struggling at times during that conference finals, I got to stick with the Celtics.
Yeah, JD mentions a player neither of us have mentioned yet. That's Andrew Wiggins has played phenomenal, so he might actually be their second best player, and he's been very impressive on the defensive end as well. And he can stop. Draymond can probably guard Tatum a little bit, and then put Wiggins on Jaylen Brown. So I still feel like the Warriors match up pretty well.
Chat, what's your predictions? Let me know your predictions in chat. I want to know what you guys think, and I will make a chat poll. And I'm curious to see how this ends up. Golden State has home court advantage despite being a 3 seed in the West. Boston was a 2 seed in the East. Golden State still has home court. Golden State is more rested, and that could be a factor. So let me make this chat poll, and then we'll jump into talking some draft content, because we were kind of holding back on some draft content because the mock-off season draft was last Friday. So, we wanted people to formulate their own opinions on some prospects, people that were in our mock-off season. So I'm ready to also jump into draft content. That's going to be the second part of this stream. But who are you? Is everybody rooting for the Celtics? Is that pretty clear-cut? Or are some of you rooting for the Warriors?
I don't know. I mean, if you're a fairly new, NBA follower in the last 10 to 12 years or so, I can see why Boston seems like let someone else have a chance to win. But I mean, if you're old school like me and have seen Boston win numerous titles, they're thought of as the Warriors of the 80s or whatever. There's been times where they've been dominant even before that too, obviously going back to before I was born with Bill Russell and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're both franchises. One has had a lot of recent success, and one has had historically right up there with the Lakers as the most success of all time. So I don't think if you pick one or the other is saying that you are rooting for the favorite, and it's kind of lame or whatever. But Golden State does have their core does have several titles, so it'd be cool to see Tatum get one.
Yeah, I've been a Tatum fan since his junior year of high school. I watched him the game where he committed to Duke right after the game. Really liked just the way he played. So I was a fan of Tatum before a lot of people knew who he was. I just like the way that guy plays the game. I like Jaylen Brown's game as well. You got Peyton Pritchard. I want to be able to say that I blocked an NBA champion. Okay. Put that on the resume for me. The only thing on the resume, because the resume isn't that good. But in all seriousness, I mean, it'd just be cool to see guys I don't know if is there a single player on the roster that's made an NBA Finals before? Am I blanking on somebody? Because I brought that up in the video that I posted earlier today, and I'm not sure if there's anybody on Boston who's been to a Finals. Horford's tenured. Like, Horford's been in the league a while, but I don't think he's ever made the finals.
Mm-hmm.
And then other than that, it's a lot
because that Atlanta team always choked.
Derek White never made the finals with San Antonio. Yeah, I can't think of anybody that has even played in the finals on that team. So, AJ, that's the joke. But I'm rooting for Boston. I'm rooting for Boston. I like a lot of players on their team. I like Ime Udoka. It'd be cool to see him win a ring. And to justify me saying all last year that we should replace Terry Stotts with Ime Udoka when everybody said, well, if you want to replace Stotts, you need to figure out who you would want to replace him with. And I would always say Ime Udoka. Now those same people, Eric, are crying about the fact that we don't have Ime Udoka, which I think is kind of ironic. It'd be cool to see him win a ring as well. David, I was talking about players on the roster, but so I'm rooting for Boston. I'm tired of the Warriors. It's not like a situation. The Warriors took a step back and then made it back this year, and they weren't the clear-cut favorites or anything. So, it's not like it was in previous years where they made the finals where I just couldn't absolutely could not stand them. Yeah. But I'm still rooting for the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, if they had Durant right now, I would be saying absolutely screw the Warriors. Celtics better beat him. But I mean, I'm not a Warriors fan. People are going to take this out of context or whatever. But it is kind of cool to see a team that won it. We're at the top of the mountain, then did one of the lamest things that any team has done in the history of sports, in my opinion. That was sign Kevin Durant. I mean, not that I blame them if Kevin Durant wants to come there. But, coming off a 73-win season when you choke in the finals and you sign Kevin Durant off of that, and then they became just complete – I mean, that's just nonsense, man. That's just unfair advantages they had. And I don't give them any credit for those particular rings. But then to see them, like you said, take a step back and then be back to this point, to see them win again would be impressive just from a – historical, looking at it in terms of legacy point of view. Not that I'm rooting for that particularly.
I have a question that might be a hot take, and I said this in my video as well. Is this, out of all the Warriors teams in the past decade to have made a finals, is this the worst out of all those Warriors teams?
It depends on if you're counting injuries or not. Because if you're counting injuries, the 2019 team where they lost to the Raptors, they had Durant was missed most of the playoffs up until the finals, and then he plays and tears his Achilles. And then you have Clay go down in that series.
Yeah, but they got there with Clay
right.
And with KD for part of the playoffs.
But I felt like, I mean, I know they swept us, but I felt like they were beatable in that playoffs. So yeah, I would say that's probably correct.
Yeah, because I don't know, the West there was no dominant teams in the West outside of Phoenix, and then they completely folded to Dallas, who with Dallas, I still feel like they could take a step back to be in a first-round exit next year, much like we did after 2019. I just think the West is wide open. Next year, you're going to add probably the Pelicans to the mix, and you're going to add the Clippers to the mix when they get healthy. It's going to be extremely entertaining to watch the West next year. As far as this poll goes, 52% out of 56 votes, 52% said Celtics. Now, I think most people were rooting for the Celtics, so maybe that's a little part of it, but pretty even, which I like. This should be a pretty competitive series. I'm rooting for some close basketball, some big moments. The other question that I want to ask as far as playoff talk before we start talking draft is, was Jimmy Butler's shot a good shot, an okay shot, or a bad shot, Eric?
I don't have a problem with it. I think it was fine. I mean, anytime you're, Portland fans don't want to hear this, but Dame's shot wasn't. I mean, PG was kind of right. He just made it.
If it goes in, it's an amazing shot. If it doesn't go in, it's a terrible shot. Right?
PG shouldn't say that. That's the problem. You can't say that because you've lost. You're a poor sport if you're saying that.
Yeah.
But it was a bad shot. We had, I think, 15 to 17 seconds on the shot clock, and Dame just stood at half court waiting as the time went down, didn't try to get to the basket, didn't try to do anything, and he takes a 37-foot sidestep three-pointer with PG in his face. So yeah, it's not. But
see, I'm okay with that Dame shot, but I feel like if you're okay with that Dame shot, you have to be okay with Jimmy Butler shooting that shot.
Well, here's what I was going to say. Jimmy Butler was amazing in these playoffs, right? And he's one of those players that actually elevates his performance in the playoffs, you know? And so those type of players, it's not a bad shot, like no matter what. Like even though I said it's a bad shot, it's not, because those guys can make that shot and they have confidence in it. And I trust Jimmy Butler in that situation. If he thinks he can make that shot and that's a better look than going to the rim, you have to trust your star player who's been masterful in these playoffs to make that shot. So I don't have a problem with them shooting it. Yeah, maybe it's a bad shot in that situation. Maybe it could have gotten to the rim, got fouled, or maybe even got an and one. But like, just if you have confidence to pull up in that situation, to go for it, man. You've earned that right, I think, and if you're certain players.
Alvaro says bad shot. Duncan Robinson was somewhat open. Duncan Robinson didn't play a single second, Alvaro. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if you're thinking about Max Strus or what. But people Spurs fan Gary says it's not Butler's game like it is Dame's, but you're talking about Butler stepping right to the line, stepping directly into a shot wide open for three when they're down two, so it's to win the game, compared to Dame tied shooting a 37-foot step back three. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, Jimmy Butler, people say, oh, he shot 20% on the season, blah, blah, blah. If he was shooting 20% in game 5, game 6, and throughout game 7, like if he was struggling with his three-point shot, he probably doesn't shoot that shot. But in game 6 and game 7, before that shot, he was 5 for 11 from 3. Okay, so he was feeling that three-point shot. That's probably why he took that shot, was because his three-point shot was on, right? I never like when people just look at the regular season and look at a percentage and then ignore how a player's shooting over the course of like the previous 2 games. You know what I mean? Like, I that matters, because a lot of players that shoot, 27, 28, 29, 30% from 3 in the NBA, they just have really bad stretches, but they can get hot for a game or 2 or 3. Right? We've seen it with like Robert Covington will get hot for a month and then be broke as hell for a month. So, his percentages end up being pretty average because of that. So I think you have to look at how the player was shooting recently going into that shot. Jimmy Butler was shooting the 3-ball well, and that was probably a better look than he had gotten the previous 11. And that was a good look for him. So he had Horford directly in front of him, backpedaling, playing his drive to the rim. And Al Horford's a good rim protector. You're down 2, so if you make this shot, all of a sudden you're up 1. You're playing for the win instead of giving Boston the ball to wind out the rest of the clock and either win the game or force overtime. Jimmy Butler had already played 48 minutes, so another 5 minutes when he was basically their entire offense probably wasn't going to go well for them.
I don't think people think about that like in the moment of the game. Like, that doesn't cross my mind when I play. Like, I doubt that crossed his mind, but like,
yeah,
I think it's just, this is a guy who averaged 21 points a game in the regular season and up that by at least 6 points per game, I think. And we always talk about how hard it is to be the same player you are when defenses focus on you and stuff like that. So this is a guy who he was feeling it. He was in the zone. Like, he had, he felt like he was going to make that shot. And I don't have a problem with that. If that's the attitude, you want your best players to have that attitude. Like, I'm going to end this game right now or give us a lead. And I that's what makes Jimmy Butler a great player. So if you try to tone that down or say like, no, don't pull up there, that's terrible. Like, drive in. That changes who he is as a player, in my opinion, because this is a guy who doesn't like to shoot threes normally. He'll take them if he has to or if he's wide open, but he doesn't like to shoot a lot of threes. It's kind of like Dwayne Wade used to do too. And so in my mind, if he's pulling up from 3, he feels like he's going to make that. So like, I don't have any problem with it. And
they lived by.
I feel like the stars, you have to let them yeah, live or die by that. Like if
they've lived by that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason they were in that game was because of Jimmy Butler being as aggressive as he was offensively. Like that mentality, when you live by it, you got to be okay with dying by it, because they were not going to be in that position without Jimmy Butler approaching the game mentally the way he did. And that's why I'm cool with Dame shooting that 37-foot sidestep three. He has the confidence that he can make a three when he steps into the parking lot. Yeah, you can say, oh, well, what if he did this? He could have gotten, maybe this would have went better. But when you're talking about a star, you got to live with what they decide to do in that situation. And it's not like Jimmy Butler shot a pull-up 40-footer with a hand in his face. He literally shot a wide-open three, stepping directly into it with a center in front of him, 100% playing the drive. And threes are a little bit easier to get offensive rebounds off of, especially in transition where guys aren't really matched up. The problem is Boston matched up really well in box out.
Well, that's the other thing too. If you're a smart player, you know Horford's going to be playing the drive because he's not thinking you're pulling up from three there. So that makes it probably a little more open than it would be like if it was Dame or whatever. Because if it's Dame, yeah, sure. Or Horford's going to have to come out on him and Dame can just drive right by him. But in that case, Horford probably wasn't expecting him to shoot the ball. So that once again leads to me to believe it was a good shot. And JD, I think, wants us to just like make up opinions, so we argue. Sorry, we don't like talk beforehand and like say like, oh, you better have this side of it, and I'll argue the other side. And
I get where he's coming from.
Basketball,
I mean, I get where he's coming from. Arguments, when we argue, it's very entertaining. But see, that's the thing. When we do argue, you guys know it's genuine, which makes it better, in my opinion. We don't sit here like Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith and say, all right, Eric, you're going to take this side of the opinion, and I'm going to take this other. I'm going to take the completely opposite take. You know, that's basically, sadly, all mainstream sports shows do, is just try and argue about things. So, but yeah, you know, like that's the thing. If you want us to argue, just bring up Keegan Murray and we can argue. We're about to talk some draft talk, and we disagree on a few draft prospects. But yeah, you know, we just say, me and Eric, I feel like we think the same way in regards to basketball and like team building and that sort of stuff.
And analytically, I don't know, just like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like we kind of have the same.
Knows, like, I don't know, we watch this for the same stuff, so. Yeah,
so you know, we do agree on a lot of stuff, but you know, when we disagree, that's how you know it's real. I'm never gonna drum up drama just for the sake of it. But shout out Storm Frantic 15 $5 donor. He says, my soul would have left my body if Jimmy hit that shot as a Blazers Celtics fan. LMAO. Thank you, Storm Frantic, for the $5 dono. I was rooting for the Celtics, but I wanted Jimmy Butler to make that shot because that would have been sick.
Yeah.
Like the momentum of the game, they hit a crazy three from Max Strus, get a stop, and then if he hit that pull up, just like all in quick succession too, that would have been insane. That would have been one of the best shots of NBA history. Even if they lost the game, that would have been one of like the biggest moments. The crowd, just the way they were rising on that transition break, like that would have been sick. So I wanted him to make that shot.
Right. It brings me back to their series in the bubble when I forgot what game that was. It might have been early on in the series though, not Game 7. But Tatum had a drive, and Bam Adebayo had one of the most impressive blocks I've ever seen, where his hand was like above the rim like this, and stopped a Tatum dunk. And so lots of interesting clutch moments between these two teams. Would have been cool to see Tatum maybe get a game-winning shot in that situation, but it didn't happen.
Yep, agreed. Anyway. 38% said good shot, 37% said it was an okay shot, and only 25% said it was a bad shot. So we do have some agreement from chat as well. Anyway, Eric, you ready to jump into draft?
Before we do the draft, let's just real quick touch upon the Blazers hiring another assistant GM today, Sergey Oliva from the Utah Jazz.
Have you ever heard of him?
No, but he previously worked for the analytics department for the 76ers. He was the head of analytics there. So I think it's interesting that we got um, a well, Mike Schmitz is like a
Draft guru.
like new style draft guru, scouting guy, break down all the film and stuff like that. So he's like an eye test kind of guy, but he also uses analytics too. Not saying he doesn't, but then you have Andre Patterson, who we hired from the Cavs last year, and he's more of just like an old school, like typical normal GM. And now we have our analytics guy, I guess. So I guess contrasting styles. But the thing I wanted to ask you, Tori, was, all right, probably good that Cronin is hiring smart people around him, right? But do you think there could be a point where, let's say all three of them want to draft someone different at number 7? How does Cronin, being an inexperienced first-time GM, keep all of them happy with his decision ultimately, because he's going to be the one who chooses which one they pick? How do you, if you have all these other assistant GMs, and you also have Billups, who by all accounts gives his input as well, how do you think Cronin's going to manage that and allow all these differing points of view, but also not upset people when he doesn't go with their decisions?
I mean, I don't think it's an issue with upsetting people if you don't go their way, because if you're coming in as an assistant GM, you should know that your opinion might not win out as the assistant. I think it's more so like everybody just needs to be heard, right? These guys are in these positions to give their input, and they're in these positions because they have a little bit of a difference of view. So just as long as everything's being taken into account and their input is being valued, I don't think it should be upsetting to any of them if they go in a different direction. Now, if you're sitting here like, this was maybe part of the problem with Terry Stotts in the past, but if you're sitting here and you hire this guy to come in and give his views, Mike Schmidt, his views on draft prospects as a scout, head of scouting department, and you just obviously don't even take that into consideration when making a decision, and all his work is just for nothing, then that's where you deal with people being upset. But that's the thing, is it needs to be a team collective decision where everybody brings their unique viewpoints to the table to try and help Cronin make the most educated decision. And I think not everybody's going to agree when you have a diversity in viewpoints. So I don't think it's something where he has to manage and try and keep people happy even if he doesn't go with them. He just needs to value their input at the bare minimum.
Yeah, so I think it shows, okay, everyone clip this. I'm about to say something nice about Cronin. I think it shows that Cronin is, I mean, obviously you got a 4-year contract, right? But
yeah,
I love this mentality of not being so insecure that you don't hire the best people because you're worried about them taking your job. And I feel like Olshey would have done the opposite. He'd hire a bunch of no-names that won't ever threaten like being better than him, right? And so it's the Damian Lillard mentality, and hopefully that breeds into the culture of the front office, because Dame, a lot of people, what do you see, Ryan Tannehill of the Tennessee Titans in the NFL, they draft a quarterback in the 3rd round, and he's like, it's not my job to train him or mentor him or whatever, screw him, like, it's my job, type attitude. And they feel threatened by that, right? He's like, but Dame, we draft Anthony Simons, we draft CJ the year after Dame. What does he do? He brings those guys under his wing. Tim Frazier, we sign him. He becomes his best friend, even though he plays the same position as him.
You mean wait, hold on. You said you would draft Anthony Simons the year after Dame?
No, I said CJ McCollum after.
I think you said Anthony Simons. I don't know if I'm hearing.
I said we drafted CJ the year after, and then we drafted Anthony Simons later on. So we drafted two players at his position. So but everything Ant said is that like Dame's been like crucial to his development and is behind him like every step of the way. Whereas like a lot of people would be like, screw that, this guy, you drafted a guy at my position, I'm not letting him take my spot or whatever, and not help him out. So if Cronin's like that and he really isn't afraid of, he just wants to do the best job possible and will get as much input as possible, I think that's a good sign for maybe being able to turn it around. But I also do know that, or I've heard that at the trade deadline, or not, I guess this was 6 days before the trade deadline when we did the Clippers trade, the rest of his staff, including his assistant GMs, were like, what the heck, that was not the plan, that we had never discussed that plan or whatever. And he just went ahead and did a trade without discussing it with any of his people underneath. So hopefully
he went
from
AWOL.
that. Yeah.
Well, see, I feel like if he's willing to bring in people like this, then he's willing to listen. You don't bring in people like this if you're not willing to listen to them. You know what I mean? So given what happened with that Clippers trade, that's why I believe ownership had a part in making that thing happen.
For sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I heard, I mean, I don't know if this is like for sure what happened or not, but I heard Cronin went into a room with the owners, or the owner and Burt Cold, and came out with the Clippers trade completed. And then everyone else, including Chauncey, was like, what the heck? And they just did not understand what was going on. But so hopefully that's the case, and Cronin's masterful from here on out. Hopefully he listens to all his assistants and gets the most input and does a fantastic job. But we're still, I mean, people want us to be like, oh, you'll never forgive him for those trades. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but those trades hurt very badly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, given the mystery that surrounds that initial trade, I'm willing to not hold that against him. Because it sounded like maybe that wasn't his choice. The CJ trade would have been fine if he just
the failure for the protections is inexcusable. No matter if he was told to make that trade or not, that's something that he'll likely never recover from, since we could be sitting here right now with the 7th and 8th pick. Yeah,
I mean, that's something that hopefully he learns from. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, that is inexcusable, and that made that a bad trade for sure. But I did like, Josh Hart was the perfect third guard, right? So I'm like, for CJ, it's not enough value. I do like that he got the right third guard. You know, who knows? Maybe we could have traded CJ for Julius Randle, which I think would have been worse. You know what I mean? Like, even though it wasn't a good trade, there's still, you know, the thing that we've been worried about, where we go out and target somebody that we give up a lot of value for in CJ McCollum that just doesn't fit the team at all. Like, at least Josh Hart fits the team. So this is my optimistic, positive viewpoint on Cronin, right? Just for anybody that says I can't say anything positive about him, at least Josh Hart fits the freaking team. Because, I mean, we could have maybe gotten Julius Randle, who I absolutely do not want at all. Okay, if anybody was confused about that. But if we should be sitting here with the 7th and 8th picks right now, basically. He did not. Maybe this teaches him, and better learn early than late, right? Maybe this teaches him to cover his bases in future trades. Maybe this teaches him to always try and mitigate risk as much as possible, even if it seems unlikely. Because, he should have in the first place, absolutely. But, if he learned that lesson with the first trade that was actually his, then, I'd rather that happen now. And the fact that he's willing to bring in people that seem pretty knowledgeable in regards to certain different areas of building a basketball team is a positive. So I'm like, I'll get, this offseason, we'll see what he does. Okay, I'm willing to, if he has a good offseason, then I'm not going to be sitting here criticizing him after the offseason. I'm kind of already at the point where I've moved past the deadline at this point.
Yeah. So Blazer fan says it's not excusable if he was told to do it. Okay, the protections of a draft pick would not be something that ownership told him he had to do.
Yeah.
That's something that he had to negotiate. And from all reports, it was assumed that New Orleans was not going to make the playoffs and that lottery pick would most likely be theirs. They were operating as if they had 2 lottery picks. They didn't think the Lakers not making the playoffs was going to be a possibility. And yeah, so
we've talked about why that Pelicans trade didn't logically make sense for the Lakers pick to not be a backup protection. We've said that on the record like 10 or 15 times. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to tell people to click off the stream and go watch a previous stream, but we've been through this, and every time we bring it up, there's always somebody that hasn't watched us go through it before. I just don't want to go through this like a 16th time. You know what I mean?
Blazer fan, go watch the stream after the New Orleans Pelicans beat the Los Angeles Clippers, whatever Friday night that was. We had a stream, and we
rant like crazy. It's entertaining.
Why we disagree with what you're saying.
Yep. Anyway, shout out to Caleb Pendergraph, $2 dono. He says, still annoyed refs took away Struce's 3. Yeah, I don't think that was conclusive enough in order to overturn it. So that was definitely tough. Thank you, Caleb Pendergraph, for the $2 dono. And then shout out Antonio, $5 dono. He says Tim Connolly got $10 million a year and equity, but he had big blunders as well. Traded away Gobert for scrap and Donovan Mitchell for scraps. Yeah. That's the thing with Denver. That's a division rival too, and divisions don't really matter. But Denver could have had Gobert and Mitchell and traded them away for, what'd they trade Gobert away for? The draft rights to Gobert?
I think it was like second round picks or maybe a future protected first or something, because he was the 27th pick. It wasn't like, but they drafted 4 of them. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah,
he wasn't ever their player, but yeah.
Yeah. So was that trade okay, that trade was official before they got to that pick.
Yeah.
So not much blame for that, but Donovan Mitchell would have been very solid there. And they traded the 13th pick, which was Donovan Mitchell, who actually was rumored to potentially go top 10. They traded that for the draft rights to the 24th pick, which was Tyler Lydon and Trey Lyles, who already didn't look like a guy that was going to be anything special. So that trade you can blame Connolly a lot for. You know, everybody talks about, O'Shea, screwed up that draft so bad by trading up 2 picks to get Zach Collins. You know what I mean? Like, hindsight bias is 2020, of course, but I mean, he's not the only one that screwed up that draft. There was multiple GMs that screwed up that draft, and there's multiple GMs that screw up drafts every single season. So, and Tim Connolly in Denver was one of them by doing that Donovan Mitchell trade.
Charlotte took Malik Monk at 11. Luke Kennard went 12. No one ever talks about that. Mm-hmm. 15 was
Justin Jackson was, yep.
Justin Jackson. 16 was Patton, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Right? People are saying who, right?
Yeah, Justin Patton. Yeah. And that was actually a guy I liked too.
17, TJ Leaf.
Yep.
18, DJ Wilson, right?
Yeah, and that was another guy I liked too.
I mean, there was lots of messes. And I mean, Dennis Smith and Frank Ntilikina before Collins.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's not many players that are still on the same team that were drafted. Well, you got Tatum and Fox and Isaac, I guess.
Yeah.
In the top 10, and then you got obviously Bam and Donovan Mitchell.
OG Anunoby and Jared Allen.
Allen's been on multiple teams.
Yeah. So Caleb Pendergraph says draft Jokic with the 36th pick helps cover for a lot of crappy decisions. But I mean, that just
41st,
41st, I think. Yeah. But I mean, point is the draft is a crapshoot, and no GM bats 100% in the draft. No GM does. Every GM's going to have mistakes where you could look back after the fact and say, look at that moron, look what he did, right? As if, you knew at the time, which that's the thing is a lot of people like to use hindsight bias in regards to drafts. But at the time of the draft, they weren't saying that. You know what I mean? Like, and it's people that said, oh, imagine if we drafted this player, this player, this player. They're the same people that saying, oh, this draft doesn't matter. That player won't help for 3 years and all sorts of crap. You know what I mean? So obviously they don't have a good handle on the draft themselves, but they use hindsight bias to criticize mistakes. Every GM makes draft mistakes. Every single freaking one. Okay? That's just the way it is.
And also every single draft has someone that's multiple teams pass on and ends up being really good. It's
Mm-hmm.
for sure. So it's not a question of, oh, there you can't. No one in this draft's going to help you. It's just it's tough to get the right guy, but it is possible to draft the right person who's perfect for your team and who becomes a star player and helps you win a championship. It's just you have to find that guy, and that's a lot easier or harder than it is than it seems like it is.
You know what this is a perfect segue for?
The draft.
Yep. All right. So do you want odds or evens? Which one did you do last time?
I don't care. We can.
Do you remember? Chat, who do you want making the Blazers pick? Me or no?
I think I did. Well, I think the last time we did it, didn't we have two? Or was that?
No. The last time we did it was before the lottery. So, all right, I'm rolling for my number out of 1 and 2. I got a 2, so I got evens. You got odds. You'll make the pick for the Blazers.
Okay.
I'm ready to criticize you for taking a certain player, and I'm just kidding. Anyway, we got the draft order ready to go, so that's cool.
Could we trade?
Do you want?
No, it's every two.
Yeah, maybe in a future stream we could come up with a few trades and then run through it. All right, so I mean, I already know your pick. Your odds. I already know your pick at 1 is Jabari, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm drafting, I'm taking Jabari. Yes.
Yeah, we're doing based on who we would take
want.
for
Okay,
teams.
yeah.
Because I have my mock draft videos where my mock draft videos are what I think teams would take, basically. So, and that's a lot based off outside information and rumors and that sort of thing, and just compiling them into a mock draft video. So, I like to do these who we would take. So you would take Jabari number 1. For OKC, number 2, I'm taking the number 1 player on my big board, which is Chet. Number 3 for Houston, Paulo. Number 4 for Sacramento. I mean, I think you got to go Jaden Ivey, but I think you got to explore trading De'Aaron Fox. If not, then you have the fastest backcourt in the league with Fox and Ivy. The quickest backcourt in the league, and, that's interesting. Sacramento's just an interesting spot. I still don't like the Sabonis trade at all, but is what it is. I think you just gotta go best player on the board, so I go Ivy for Sacramento. All right, here's where things get interesting. Eric at 5 with Detroit.
All right, yeah, definitely a swing decision here. I think they can afford to roll the dice here. I think they go Sharp.
Okay, Sharp. So let me just say this point.
I would roll the dice. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you would roll the dice. Yeah. At this point, I still have Sharp 5 on my big board, but Mathurin and Dyson Daniels are two guys I like. And honestly, at this point, and this might be the case for the Blazers too, I'm stuck on Mathurin or Dyson Daniels, which one I like better, but at this point, I would be leaning Dyson Daniels. So that would be my pick at 6 for Indiana. I think he's big enough to play the 3, so you could play some Halliburton, Duarte, Dyson Daniels. He can defend. I think has one of the highest. Honestly, on everybody left on the board, other than maybe Keegan Murray, he has the highest floor. But I think you can make an argument that he has a higher floor than Keegan Murray as well. So I like Dyson Daniels. I'm going to go Dyson Daniels 6, Indiana.
Yeah, as Andrew says, thank you for setting me up, Tori. I'll take Benedict Mathurin for the Blazers.
Okay. Yeah, I should. If I took Mathurin, who would you have taken?
Dude, I don't know.
I want the answer, man. I want the answer because I made it easy on you.
I don't have to answer it today. That's good.
No, I'm curious. Who would you take? Would it be Keegan Murray?
I don't know if I'm taking Keegan, but I definitely would consider it.
Who else would you consider? I'll make it easier on you.
I mean, I'm considering a lot of people between Daniels, Johnny Davis, Keegan Murray, Jeremy Sohan maybe even enters the conversation.
Gotcha.
I
I feel
don't
like
know
I
who
haven't
I'm
heard you
thinking.
talk much about Dyson Daniels, to be honest. I feel like that's the one player in the top 10 I haven't really heard you talk a whole lot about. So that's kind of why I was curious. Just wondering if you were considering him at 7 for Portland. He's definitely risen. At 8, I'm going Johnny Davis. I think he's the best player on the board and fills a position of need and a skill set of need as an on-ball defender. They brought in Herb Jones. I still think they could use another good on-ball defender. So I think Johnny Davis makes perfect sense at 8 for New Orleans. If not him, then if Matherin's still on the board, he also makes a ton of sense for them. All right, at 9, you got San Antonio, Eric.
Yeah, they're going to take Keegan Murray because they could use a scorer like him.
Yeah, that feels like a Spurs player too. And they have 20 and 25 to maybe take a swing on some high upside guys. Mm-hmm. At 10 for Washington, they're in a weird situation right now. I think Jalen Duren is the best player left on the board, and I think that's kind of what they got to go after. They have a lot of forwards. They either need guards or a center, and you got Jalen Duren right there. So I'm going Duren. 11, New York Knicks, who you are in the mock-off season.
Hold on just a second. Let's see. All right, he took Duren. I mean, I'm going to go with the guy I took in the mock-off season, and that's Malachi Branham.
Yeah, I like that. 12 is OKC. Chet at 2. I think Sohan or Eason is what it comes down to. I think Eason is a little bit more equipped to play the 3 compared to the 4, and Jeremy Sohan's more of a 4. I like Tari at a 3, but you also got AJ Griffin as well, so you could go shooting, and I think AJ Griffin would be a good fit there in OKC. Or you could go with upside, which this is tough.
While you're doing that, I'm going to read the donation.
Yeah, read the dono.
Shout out to Caleb Pendergraft for the $5 donation. The mock draft I looked at last night had the Blazers taking Jeremy Grant forward out of Detroit with the 7th pick. Thoughts? I love how you phrase that. But yeah.
It'd be like taking Keegan Murray, in my opinion.
To me, I mean, for those,
but Keegan Murray would be cheaper. Go ahead.
Those that have already heard this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go on an epic rant if we trade number 7 for Jeremy Grant, because that means it actually hurt us to tank, because we could have possibly prevented New Orleans from making the playoffs and had scenarios come out to where we had 2 lottery picks. If we were just going to trade ours for that tanking for Jeremy Grant, it would have made more sense to do a lot of things differently, and we would have actually had to suffer through this painful season of tanking for absolutely no reason at all, just to have us trade the pick anyway. So that, to me, is the worst possible scenario if we can't get Jeremy Grant for a better offer than number 7. Now, I've come around. If we can get him for the Milwaukee pick and Keon and maybe some seconds or whatever, I'm fine with it, I guess. It's still not the player I would choose, but I've resigned myself to believing that that's the case, but I am not going to be happy if we trade the 7 for him.
Yep. So I went AJ Griffin 12 for OKC.
Okay.
I mean, he has some question marks, but I think they are in position to just take a risk on him, and I think he has the highest I think AJ Griffin has a higher upside than Eason and Sohan, just with his shooting ability and potential off the dribble, and if he can regain some of the athleticism he had in high school. So, and they got a big guard in SGA and a big, kind of point forward type in Giddey. So I think, even if Griffin's undersized, he could still fit in there in OKC and be a shooter for those guys. So I like AJ Griffin at 12 for OKC. At 13, you got Charlotte.
Yeah, I am in a perfect position here if I'm Charlotte to rework my front line power forward and center positions, maybe even play Miles Bridges at some 3, and I'm going to take Jeremy Sohan here for them.
All right, Sohan at 14, you got Cleveland. At 14, you got Cleveland. You could go a number of different ways. You could go score with like Agbaji, but I think they could go for some upside as well. I don't think they have their long-term three right now. I don't think it's Lauri Markkanen. I don't think it's Karis LeVert. I like Tari Eason, but I also think they're fine defensively and can go for maybe a guy with a little bit more offensive upside. So I actually like Ousmane Dieng at 14 for Cleveland.
All right.
15, you got Charlotte again. Took Sohan.
Yeah. So continuing what I was just saying, I now am going to take a center because I knew one of the two would be on the board still.
One of the two of who?
Well, because they have 13 and 15, right? So there's two centers I would have been fine with. And
okay. Because I was going to say I took Duran.
Even if you take one of the two, I still have the other one, so that's why I took the other player first. But I'm actually going to surprise people and take Christian Koloko here.
Anybody that knows you knows that's not a surprise.
No, I'm just... I mean, some people might be new.
But anybody new, that's a surprise. But Eric loves himself some Christian Koloko. I like Koloko as well. I have him pretty much the same tier as a Mark Williams. So Koloko at 15. For Charlotte, Koloko and Sohan. 16, we got Atlanta. And... man, I feel like the evens are harder. Do you think the evens are harder, or do you think I'm just overthinking things?
You're overthinking things. It's who you'd want, so it doesn't really matter.
I know, but I have to think about who I'd want. I mean, I would probably sit here and take... For Atlanta, they have a lot of depth at multiple positions. I would go for some offensive upside, positional versatility, and I'd actually like Jovic for them, to be honest, at 16. I'd take Jovic.
Yeah, that's interesting.
17, you got Houston.
All right, Houston with their second pick. I could be like Arshad in our mock-off season. And
just take Duke guys, yeah.
Take Duke guys. Actually, I like Tari Eason here for them.
Yeah, I would have went Eason as well. That's a spot that makes a ton of sense for him. At 18, you got Chicago, and Chicago's an interesting team. They don't have their... They got Patrick Williams, DeRozan. Lonzo Ball has some injury questions. They could go for a center that could play right away. They got Vucevic, but he kind of fell off. I don't know if they'll look to get off him. Right now, I'm looking between... Actually, I'm probably just going to take Mark Williams just to be their long-term center, lob target. I think Mark Williams makes sense. Funny how they have him listed as 6'10" when he's a true 7-footer. I'm going Mark Williams for Chicago. At 19, you got Minnesota.
All right. Minnesota, I'm just going to take the highest player left on my board. I think Agbaji's a good fit on both ends of the court for them, and I'm taking Agbaji.
Okay. At 20, the Spurs, they took Keegan Murray at 9, which means I think they need a swing for some upside. And therefore, I'm going to go with Leonard Miller. High upside guy, kind of unknown, big, multiple years away. San Antonio could stock up on some forwards, or should stock up on some forwards in this draft, so I like Leonard Miller for them. At 21, you got Denver.
Let's see. I feel like they need to rework their guard situation, and I really like a couple different guards work here for them, but I would like to see Santa Clara's Jalen Williams on Denver.
Yeah, I like him. He makes sense. At 22, you got Memphis. Kyle Anderson's a free agent. I think that one guy could come in and potentially fill his role in what he does right away. And that is, and with better shooting on top of that, and that is Jake LaRavia. Good defensive player, can play make a little bit, can play either forward spot, a little undersized for the 4, but he can also shoot the ball really, really well, and I think he would be a guy that could step in and maybe play right away for Memphis. You do got Zaire Williams, but I like Jake LaRavia here. Memphis is a team with a lot of depth, so I don't think there's any position they'd target, but I really like LaRavia for him. And then 23, you got, do you want to say this is Philadelphia? Or do you want to say this is Brooklyn?
I don't think it matters. I'll just pick my favorite player.
Okay, who's that?
No, I mean I'll just pick who I feel like would be a draft. Who I'd pick at 23, regardless of the team, I guess.
Gotcha.
Hold on, I'm trying to find.
This is my big board. It's not fully updated, but this is like the rankings on this are kind of my prospect rankings, by the way, in case anybody was wondering.
I like for either team, I like the other Jalen Williams.
The other Jalen Williams. You're going back to back Jalen Williams.
Yeah.
Where did I have him? I didn't have him this low. I had him higher than that. Where's he at? 30. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I like Jalen Williams as well. A solid pick there. 24, we got Milwaukee. Milwaukee could use... I think Milwaukee could use a guy that could step in right away and score a little bit. I think Milwaukee makes a ton of sense for an EJ Liddell because I think he could step right away and help. And you got Giannis, so maybe that can help offset some of the lack of size for EJ Liddell with the 4, considering Giannis can play probably any position and is just absolutely huge. But I think you also need a scorer to come in and maybe get buckets right away, help out their bench. They don't really have a guy that can create his own shot off the bench, in my opinion. So I'm going to go Jaden Hardy from Milwaukee.
Okay.
At 25, you got San Antonio. They've taken Keegan Murray and Leonard Miller.
All right. I think they're a type of team that just would draft the best, prospect they see, and regardless of position, even if it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think at this point, Ty Washington's probably the best value, so I'll take it.
That's who you'd go with?
Yeah.
Cool. Ty Washington at 25. At 26, you got Dallas. And this is tough, man, because they could go center. They need maybe a little bit more scoring help. I think they'll bring back Jalen Brunson, but that's not a sure thing. They could also maybe use another on-ball defender so that they could maybe look to trade a Reggie Bullock. So I think they're in position to just go best player available, and that's clearly, I think at this point, MarJon Beauchamp. So I'm going him.
Okay.
27, you got Miami. Fresh off their heartbreak.
All right. So for Miami, I think I'm going to get some scoring on that team. I think they have plenty of defense, so I'm going to go for EJ Liddell.
All right, EJ Liddell for Miami. I've had Kennedy Chandler in all 3 of my mock drafts for them. So go a little different. 28, you got Golden State. And I think a player that makes just a ton of sense there, and I think that they would develop really well, is Dalen Terry. I would go Dalen Terry at 28 for Golden State.
I thought you were drafting on your likes.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
For Golden State, I like Dalen Terry, okay? There you go.
Max, we talked about that at the beginning of the show after it's done, if you want to go back and watch.
Yep. 29 is Memphis. They took LaRavia at 22.
This may come as a bit of a surprise to you.
I like surprises. Let's go.
But I actually like this guy a lot. I don't even know if did he even get drafted in our mock draft. But I'm going to take Musa Diabate for the Grizzlies. I feel like he could be a Jaren Jackson type player for when he is hurt half the season. Not quite half the season, but I feel like he would be a good compliment to him.
Yeah, he didn't get drafted in our walk-off season. That is a. I know you like Diabate. That is a little bit of a surprise. I like surprises though. At 30, you got OKC. They took Chet. They took AJ Griffin. They're just in a position to swing on a bunch of high upside guys. And the thing is a lot of the highest upside guys I feel like are also the guys that I'm probably least educated on because they're more unknown quantities, So like Dominic Barlow is somebody I took in our mock off season because he fell to 46. But from what I've read, I haven't watched much of him, but from what I've read, he seems like a high upside guy, kind of a boomer bust. But he played for Overtime Elite. I wasn't about to watch an Overtime Elite game. I have not watched an Overtime Elite game. But just seems like probably the highest upside guy left on the board. So I'm going Dominic Barlow at 30 for OKC.
All right.
31, you got Indiana. They took Dyson Daniels at 6.
Trying to find. I need to update my my Fanspo big board because there's some players that have moved up that are hard to find now. All right, so 30. Oh, we're at Indiana.
Yeah.
All right, they got Daniels in the first round. I am going to take Jabari Walker for them.
All right, Jabari Walker from Colorado for Indiana. At 32, Orlando has 3 picks in this draft. I like Procida for them. Potential draft and stash guy. Seems like he's a guy that could have some sneaky upside, athletic, can handle the ball a little bit, score off the dribble a little bit, can shoot a little bit. Just if you're able to develop all of those things enough, he could be a good value here at 32. So I'm going Gabriel Procida. 33, Toronto.
Man, I'm having the worst time trying to find some people. There we go. Trying to keep up so it's not crazy at the end. All right, so the Raptors are on the clock, and I feel like this guy screams, lanky, athletic defender. So I'm taking Blake Wesley.
All right, Blake Wesley for Toronto. At 34, we got OKC. Swinging for upside, they took Chet, AJ Griffin, Dominic Barlow. They could go for a draft and stash guy, and this is one of the guys with the highest upside left on the board. So Ismail Kamagate at 34, I think, makes a ton of sense for them. 35, you got Orlando. They've taken Jabari Smith and Gabriel Procida.
All right. Man. You know what? Screw it. They don't need players anyway. They need to consolidate. So I'm going to take Baji.
All right, let me go all the way down my draft board.
Yeah.
And find Ibu Baji.
That's for Aeromancer.
There we go. All right. Ooh, I got Portland at 36. And the top the top 5 guys on my big board is one that I just really don't like. And 4 guards. Oh man. Dude, I don't actually I would be disappointed if this was our options at 36. Took Mathurin at 7. I would go with Orlando Robinson. Center, very skilled, solid size, can shoot the 3, can handle a little bit, can pass a little bit. I think Chauncey could tap into that, and can shoot the 3 ball. So Portland could use some center depth. I'm going Orlando Robinson at 36.
I think, just a side note, I'm pretty sure off the top of my head he measured at like 6'9".
I think he measured taller than that, if I recall. I'm gonna look that up right now. While you make your pick. 37 is Sacramento.
All right, Sacramento.
He measured 6'9.75" without shoes,
okay.
9'3" standing reach. So solid.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I am going to take.
By the way, chat, if you're asking any questions, we're focused on this mock draft at the moment, so we might miss some questions. We're not ignoring you on purpose, just how it goes. Who would you take at 37 for?
I'm going to swing for a high upside guy and go Bryce McGowan's.
Bryce McGowan's. I like that pick for Sacramento. I think it makes a lot of sense there. At 38, you got San Antonio. They've taken Keegan Murray, Leonard Miller, Ty Washington. I'm not the biggest fan of.
Well, don't draft anyone you're not a big fan of.
I mean,
for the record, Leonard Miller has a big announcement tomorrow.
What does that even mean?
Weird. I don't know. Some people are saying he might pull out of the draft, which I don't think makes
that would
sense.
Be disappointing.
But,
yeah, I don't think that makes sense either. San Antonio's not a team that needs more guards, man, and they took Ty Washington, and they just don't need more guards. I am gonna go with David Roddy. You hope he can lose like 25 pounds and then see what you got. He's pretty dang athletic for being 6'5" and 260 pounds, and he's solidly skilled. So I'm gonna go David Roddy for San Antonio at 38. At 39, you got Cleveland. They took Ousmane Dieng at 14. Eric.
Let me just get this David Roddy pick in. All right, so they're on the board, and I feel like this player fits in really well with their style, will come in and play a good rotational role right away. They're obviously trying to win, and that's Wendell Moore Jr.
All right, Wendell Moore Jr. for Cleveland at 39. All right, at 40, I got Minnesota. They took Ochai Agbaji. I think this is finally the point where I'm comfortable with taking Kendall Brown, defensive forward, athletic. They got 3 picks here in the second round. So, they already have some solid forward defenders, Jaden McDaniels, Jared Vanderbilt, but you can never have enough of those, so I'll roll with Kendall Brown here at 40. I was tempted to leave him on the board just to see if you would draft him at any point, Eric.
I think I did last time begrudgingly, but...
Yeah. New Orleans at 41, they took Johnny Davis at 8.
All right, let me just find Kendall Brown way down on my draft board. All right, so New Orleans. I feel like New Orleans has a lot of different ways they could go. They have some really good defensive pieces that they added last year. They also have some really good offensive pieces, so I think they can just swing for the fences, and I think this would be a good situation if it's ever going to work out for Patrick Baldwin Jr. So I'm going to take him and just hope that his shooting is a plus. New Orleans needs some shooting, especially now with Davis. If his shooting doesn't improve at the next level, so I'm just going to try to hopefully get a good shooter in Patrick Baldwin.
Yep. At 42, I have New York, and I have a player that I think they just would be ecstatic to be on the board at this point and that they'd run away with, which is Kennedy Chandler at 42. If I had odds, I would have taken Kennedy Chandler at 27 for Miami. The thing is, there's a lot of teams in between that 27th pick and here that don't really need more point guard depth, that are pretty set on guards. So that's why I haven't picked them until now. I think New York could use New York has some guards as well with like Emmanuel Quickley, Derrick Rose, but I think they consolidate at some point and open up a spot for Kennedy Chandler. So I like Kennedy Chandler a lot at 42 for New York.
All right.
At 43, you got the Clippers.
The Clippers obviously should be healthier next year. They have a lot of talents. I think they could use a guy who can hit big shots and make a little bit. And I think this might be another guy that wasn't drafted in our mock off-season draft, but I'm taking Jamari Bouye.
Okay, Jamari Bouye. Yeah, he wasn't taken either. Cool. All right, at 44, we got Atlanta. They took Jovic at 16. I don't know. They have so much depth. And I don't even know what position to draft for. So I think it's a situation where maybe they draft a guy at a position of need that they can stash. So I think I'm going to go Hugo Besson here. If they want a third guard, offensively, Hugo Besson would make sense as a third guard. Defensively, I don't think he does. So that's why I was hesitant to draft him, but I think I just got to go with Besson here at 44.
All right.
45, you got Charlotte. They took Sohan and Koloko.
All right. So, in going with my new front court and getting super athletic, I'm going to go with Josh Minot here and just hope that he develops with some upside. But I think going to a fast-breaking team like the Hornets would be a good move for him.
Yep. At 46, the Pistons took Shaedon Sharpe. I'm going to just go with an electric scorer in Terquavion Smith. Shaedon Sharpe and Terquavion Smith for Detroit would be an interesting pairing to watch in Summer League, man. 47, you got Memphis. They took LaRavia.
Shots up.
Yeah. LaRavia and Diabate.
Let me just find Terquavion. All right. I think this is another team that can just afford to go with best player on their board. I think comes down to two players here, but I'm going to get a little bit of a contrast with Ja being a good offensive player and not quite good enough on the defensive end, and take someone that has some defensive upside and maybe a little less offensive potential, and that's Trevor Keels.
All right, Trevor Keels for Memphis. At 48, got Minnesota. They took Agbaji. They took Kendall Brown. They have 4 picks, so I think they're in position to stash. And there's a guy that's kind of intriguing me. I'm just going to take him here at 48. Carlo Matkovic if that's how you say his name. Power forward, maybe could use some extra depth. Might have the size to play some center. I don't know his measurements off the top of my head. But drafted Sash guy who looked impressive during some workouts at the draft combine. Looks athletic, was knocking down threes. Shot looked pretty solid. So I'm going to go with Matt Kovic at 48 for Minnesota.
All right.
At 49, you got Sacramento. They've taken McGowans and Ivy.
All right.
Max, you guys do not have a pick at all this year, man.
Another maybe bit of a surprise. I think they try to hope they can mimic something with Cleveland last year and take Evan Mobley's brother, Isaiah.
Okay, Isaiah Mobley with Sabonis there in Sacramento. I like Isaiah Mobley offensively. Defensively, I think he could be solid, but he's more... For anybody that... I don't know if I've talked on air about Isaiah Mobley. Would you agree that he's more offensively... I don't know if I'd say more offensively versatile, but he's like a little better passer than Evan Mobley, maybe a little more consistent three-point shooter, and Evan Mobley is a better defensive player. Is that how you'd compare the two?
No, I don't think he does anything better than Evan. I think it's all... He's just a poor man's Evan in every category, in my opinion.
I like his playmaking potential, Isaiah Mobley.
I don't think it's better than Evan's, though.
I don't know. 50, you got Minnesota. They took Agbaji, Brown, and Matt Kovic. I think they could go... I mean, they're set guard-wise. They don't really need another guard. I think they could go for some upside because they're actually pretty deep now. I think they could also go for another draft and Sash guy, but maybe a two-way. Is John Butler still in the draft?
As far as I know, yeah.
Going John Butler.
Okay.
Tall guy with some skills. Just an upside play there because I think they're set on depth. So if a team needed point guard depth, there would be I would be considering completely different players right now. But now it's more team need. At 51, you got Golden State. They took Dalen Terry at 28.
All right. That's why I'm in.
Charlie says they're definitely not guard set. Bro, they got D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards can play the two, they got Pat Beverly, they got Malik Beasley, they got Jalen Noel, who was solid in limited minutes last year. Also, Jordan McLaughlin is very solid for a third-string point guard. They are absolutely set on guard.
I am going to take another player that hope that his shooting is better in the NBA than in college, and I'm going to go for Caleb Houston.
Caleb Houston for Golden State. At 52, I have New Orleans. They took Johnny Davis, Patrick Baldwin Jr. They have Devontae Graham, but I would look to move off of them. I actually like Andrew Nembhard here for New Orleans as a third guard behind CJ McCollum and Johnny Davis.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I do. 53, you got Boston.
All right, Boston makes an appearance. Feel like they can also just afford to take a chance on someone. And with that in mind, I'm going to take Jay Montero.
Jay Montero. All right, now we have the forfeited picks. So I'm going to... Who's dropped out? Harrison Ingram. I'll take it 54 for the forfeited pick. I wish we could just skip the pick. And then has anybody else dropped out that was somewhat notable?
Trace Jackson Davis is on here, I think.
Yeah, Trace Jackson Davis. Okay, at 56, aka 54 for Washington.
I don't know why it doesn't just let you skip it.
Yeah, I don't know either. Now you got Washington. They could use some guard help. And there's a couple solid guard prospects on the board. I think Ryan Rollins has a lot of upside for being here at 56 as a guard that can score the ball, mid-major score, pretty smooth. Could be a sixth man in the future for Washington that can kind of light the nets on fire a little bit. So I'm going to go with him out of Toledo. At 57, you got Golden State. They took Dalen Terry and Caleb Houston, Eric.
All right. I think they once again just go high upside, and I'm going to take. Ooh, it's tough between two guys. I'm going to take Peyton Watson for them.
Peyton Watson, definitely a high upside guy. All right, 58. We got Cleveland, who took Wendell Moore Jr. and Ousmane Dieng. I think they could maybe... I don't know if Kevin Love's going to be there long term. Lauri Markkanen, they play a lot at the 3. They don't really have any reliable bigs outside of that. I think next to Evan Mobley, Trevion Williams could be a really good fit. And if he can develop a three-point shot, he can pass the ball really, really well. Probably the best passing big in the class. I like Trevion Williams here at 58 for Cleveland.
All right. And second to last pick is
Portland. For
your Portland Trailblazers. Oh, man.
They took Mathurin and Orlando Robinson.
Yeah, so in my mind, I don't think 3 rookies are making the team this year.
In your mind, you like Drew Timme, don't you?
I am definitely not taking Drew Timme here, if anyone was wondering. I am going to go for potential just swing for the fences defensive specialist, and that's Yannick Noza.
Oh, another center. Okay. All right, Yannick Noza for Portland. And then 60 is Indiana. They took Jabari Walker and Dyson Daniels. I'm going to go for upside. And, I mean, they have some playmaking with Dyson Daniels. I don't know. Nobody down there. You still got Max Christie on the board, Keon Ellis, Christian Brown, even, Walker Kessler, Alondas Williams. But I'm going to go for a guy who I think has higher upside than all those guys. I'm going to go with Jordan Hall.
All right. AJ, we're doing who we would take, not who we think will be taken. So. Yep.
All
right.
Yeah, Jordan Hall can play make a little bit. Pretty smooth, small forward. I like his game. But anyway, that is our mock draft. I will tweet. Can I tweet this? 5:30 to Blazers Uprise mock draft. Blazers Uprise live mock draft. That's what I'll name it, and I'll tweet it out in case any of you want to look back through some of our picks that we just made. We alternate and pick who we would take. My mock drafts on the main channel are who I think teams would take. So I will tweet that out. Anyway, that is our mock draft. Anything else you want to cover in the stream, Eric?
Thought someone had. Oh, what do you think about the Lakers hiring Darvin Ham?
Better choice than Terry Stotts.
Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, I don't know a ton about him, but it seems like it could be a good hire, which kind of sucks. for Blazer fans. Not for Max, though.
I can't find it, but someone asked who is... It might have been Max, the Lakers fan. Who is a better coach, Vogel or Stotts? And I don't...
Vogel.
Yeah, I would say Vogel. He's coached... to me, if you have a top-ranked defense, you're a good coach, and he's had that in the past. He's taken now the Pacers he did well with, and now the Lakers. I know they suck this year, but I still don't put a lot of that on the coaching, even though he was not good this year. I just think overall he's a better coach, but that situation would have been tough for any coach, Stotts or Vogel or now Darvin Ham. That's a very tough situation to implement the things you want to implement on a roster and a front office that's all at ends with each other, it seems like.
Yep. Max, the Lakers fan, says he wanted the Blazers legend Terry Stotts as Lakers head coach. Yeah,
that would have been fun.
Seeing that too. And after two
for
games,
the storylines, it would have been pretty interesting.
Dude, so it came out that Stotts was interested in coaching Westbrook. I would have loved to have seen that. I would have. He would have given Westbrook the confidence to shoot 30-footers.
Well, here's the thing when you switch to someone as drastically different from Dame as Russell Westbrook is in terms of play style, like it might actually be good for Stotts to force him to have to coach, whereas I feel like he just kind of mailed it in the last couple of years. So I think he would have done a pretty good job there, at least initially. He took a year off. Maybe he's re-energized and realized some of the things he did wrong. But, it would have been really frustrating seeing the Lakers if they won a championship or something with Stotts, even if it had nothing to do with their coach.
Yep. We had an interesting trade idea brought up in the comments section, Eric. Basically, it was, would you trade 7 and Greg Brown or Watford for 25 and Keldon Johnson? And I said, I don't think you have to throw in Greg Brown or Watford into that. So 7 for 25 and Keldon Johnson. Would you even consider that? I would say no. But maybe if it was 20 instead of 25.
Yeah, I don't know if the Spurs do that, though. But, man, that's someone I haven't really thought of. I think he fits into the Rocco TPE too, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, he might fit into the Nickeil Alexander-Walker TPE.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll check that right now.
If Mathurin is on the board, I would say no. I'm all in on Mathurin. If Mathurin goes 5 or 6 or whatever, and we're deciding between like Dyson Daniels and some other players, I feel like maybe the player we could get at 25, along with Keldon Johnson and the way he can hit threes, and would space the floor for us, was an Olympian with Dame. So you'd still maybe have the assets to maybe trade 25 in the Milwaukee pick for Jeremy Grant then. And then your new front court is Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Grant. I could see that vision. I mean, I don't know if I would do it personally, but I could definitely see how that would be intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, 8'8" standing reach for Keldon Johnson, so small forward size, solid small forward size. I like Dyson Daniels, so it's not necessarily a case of just Mathurin. I'm pretty even on Daniels and Mathurin at this point. I would have a hard time passing on Daniels for Keldon Johnson in 25. Maybe for 20, but I would be on the fence. And that's if we don't include Greg Brown or Trent Watford. And honestly, I don't even really... I'm still not super confident in Greg Brown turning into anything, so I don't really... If I have to throw him in, it doesn't really change the equation for me. I would definitely not give up Watford, though.
Yeah. But yeah, I like those kind of suggestions that are ones we haven't talked about.
Yep. Agreed. Anyway, anything else for the stream, Eric?
No, thank everyone for watching. Hope everyone has a good night, and we'll see you guys Thursday night.
Yep. We'll see you then. Well, that's the first game of the finals. And it's going... We'll be live after the first game of the finals, so we'll talk a little bit about that and probably take your questions or something along those lines.
Do you want to break it to Max?
What do you mean? Did a second round NBA mock draft, Max.
We did the first and second round, all 60 picks or 58 because there's 2 forfeited picks. Yeah. Did you just like blank out for the last half an hour?
I don't know.
You were asking questions in chat, or were you just not watching the show?
Yeah, you were here when we were doing the second round, so I don't know what happened.
Man.
Anyway, yeah, we'll catch you guys again live on Thursday. Stay tuned for some videos. And yeah, that's a wrap for this episode of Blazers Uprise Live. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like on the stream to help us out. And we are out of here. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.